Okay guys, so hello and welcome back to Code with Lily Code, and today we are on day 90 of 100 days of code. So we only have 10 days left. Accidentally in yesterday's video, after we finished today, but accidentally in yesterday's video I didn't have my microphone turned on. But we did hook up all of our API requests to our mock backend, and just from looking at the videos here and where we're at, basically Brad, once he's finished that, I didn't wrap up that project, but now Brad is moving on to a GitHub Finder and project intro. So we're going to create a new project, a GitHub Finder. So I'm going to just start this one because we went through all the motions. We did all the things that we were supposed to do in the last one. And I'm eager to just continue on with this course. And this is the second project in this course. So let's have a bash of it and see how we get on. So with that being said, I'm just going to watch the video and find out what's going on next. So next we're going to use some use reducers, which is to manipulate parts of your state. So we were looking at state management in the last three videos. Anything with use context or use state in the title, we have been looking at state management. So we're going to create an alert context, so we'll have alerts popping up on the page. We'll be able to have a search bar and search through all of the users on GitHub and link to somebody's name, have a look at somebody's profile. So cool. Cool. Okay, so we're going to get started on this project. So we're going to use DaisyUI and Tailwind. Cool. So the first thing we'll do is go to TailwindCSS.com because we'll get some information there about Tailwind and see how to start this project. So tailwind.css, is it? .com. Yeah, I thought, never heard the extension .css. So this is not it. Tailwind and CSS. I'll just Google that and we'll get the right link here now. So it's tailwindcss.com. And here we go, so cool. So we want to go to create React app here, so let me just type in React, create React. Here we go. Okay. Cool, so I'll start off by literally just running this command, and this is how we can start off to create our new project that we're going to create, which is a GitHub Finder, so you can look for people's projects and, view their projects and check the statistics of their projects, and there will be links to their repositories as well. So we're going to create a new project now and get to grips with some more complex React basic understanding, and also or just understanding more complex React concepts, and also go over all the concepts that we've already gone over because we're starting to create a brand new project, so we have to build it all up to that point as well. So what we want to do is open up our terminal here. I'll just open our terminal from within our folder here, so within our Brad Traversy folder, and here is my terminal, so we can see we're inside the Brad Traversy folder here. I'll just zoom in so you guys can see this. And I'm going to write this command here. So we want npx create React app, and we're going to call this GitHub Finder and hit enter. So perfect. So this should create our React application for us. Okay, so that's just going there, and then when that's finished we're going to cd into our project folder and get going on installing Tailwind into it. Okay, so while that's going, I'm just going to have a look through this documentation here. So I'll leave that there, that's still going, and check out Tailwind. So create React app, yeah. Okay. With React, start by creating a new React project with Create React App version 5 plus. If you don't already have one set up, yeah, install TailwindCSS via npm. And then run the init command to generate both Tailwind config and postcssconfig.js. Okay, cool. So once we have it installed, we will run these two commands to install Tailwind and the peer dependencies, which is postcss and auto prefixer, and then initialize, run the init command, which will generate this Tailwind config.js and our postcss.config.js files. So awesome. So we're just waiting for this to run here. It's taking its time, let me tell you. So okay. And then we're going to open up that project. So there were still small bits to be done in the project that I left, but we built the whole thing. Like, we did build it. There was probably some small bugs, but just in the interest of seeing what's going on in this course and what else, because all that stuff I sort of did know. Now, solving bugs is a great way to learn, but I want to finish a course and see what's going on, and we have 10 days left here. So I'd love to finish this course in the 10 days. So spending a day looking at bugs isn't in my top interest right now, to be honest. So yeah, I'd like to just continue on and see. So here we go. This is continuing here. We can see we're getting there. So installing packages, installing React, and we have some more installs going here. So core.js. There we go, it's still going. Now it's installing template dependencies using npm. These are the different packages it's adding. And then it's removing template package using npm, but this is just the general install. It's just going through all the different things that it needs to do, and soon we'll see that, there we go, we are able to continue. So now we'll cd into our GitHub project, the new GitHub Finder React project that we've just created. So this is a React project. We're in it here now. You can see our source. We start off with all our usual files. We have our node modules, which is just the different packages. We can install more or less of them, and our public folder, which is where everything bootstraps up from, this index.html file. So perfect, we have everything there, and then let's continue with getting Tailwind CSS installed. So now we need to run npm install Tailwind, postcss and auto prefixer, so the dependencies. So I'll open up my terminal, new terminal, and this terminal should be within our project here. So we're within our project, so we can just paste this command, and I will zoom in there so you guys can see that a little bit better. So you can see here npm install, and we've just pasted that command that was found on the Tailwind CSS website. Now, I haven't used Tailwind CSS yet, but it seems to just be some sort of CSS package to make things look a bit pretty. So we'll see how it's all going to unfold as we continue, you know. Just standard stuff really, installing a package, and this one happens to be for CSS. So we'll see how it what it actually does as we continue to use it here. So I'll just run the second command here that we were told to run, npx tailwind CSS, and initialize it. So that's what this command is going to do now. Just move this over so you can see the command that I just put in. So yeah, npx tailwind CSS init-p. So we've ran the two commands that are on the Tailwind website there. Here they are. And what's the third step? Configure your template paths. Add the paths of your template files in your tailwind.config.js file. Okay, so in our tailwind.config.js, let's copy this line because it seems that you need to add it. So okay, so I'll leave this down here. Ah, sure, that's grand. And I'll close down my terminal for a moment here. So now we want to go into our newly created file that the init command made this file for us. So that file was called Tailwind config CSS, and we can see here this content. This is the bit we need to replace. Yeah, so I'll just put in the recommended content there, what it said. So yeah, I'll stick that in and we'll continue to figure this out as we go. So yeah, I'm just following the Tailwind CSS installation tools here. So add the Tailwind directives to your CSS. So in our source index CSS file, we want to add each of these also. So we'll add these into our index.css, which is in our source. There we go. So I'll just add these at the top of the file so we can use Tailwind. We've imported it. And why does it not like this? Unknown rule. View problem. Okay. So let's just go back here. Add the @Tailwind directives for each Tailwind's layer to your source index.css file. Yeah. So let's just try and run the build and see what happens. So we'll go to our terminal here, new terminal. And we'll just stick in npm run start and see what errors we get and let's go to our problems here and just have a look. Right, so unknown rule @Tailwind. Yep. Understandably, because I don't know about it either, but okay. Okay, so it seems like a while ago the installation instructions for this were different because he's gone through a different setup here, which is why I've just gone on with it and like I'm at 100% why I'm just following the documentation. So let's just make sure here from the docs that we are indeed doing the right thing here. So yeah, he was on version 2. So if I pick version 2.16 was the version he was on, but if I do go to this version, what does the getting started look like? Is it similar to what he's seeing there? So we want to look for React. There we go. Yes, so this is what Brad Traversy is doing now at the moment, is these particular steps. But seeing as we now have an upgraded version of React, so just let me move this over here. So this is what Brad is doing. If I just zoom in here, he is running these commands. So he created his React project, he CD'd into the project folder, and now he's running this command to install Tailwind via npm, which we used a different command, and then is also npm installing Krakow in order to overwrite the React scripts that are already there and to allow the CSS to be used from Tailwind CSS. So I'm going to stick with the new version and figure out how the new version works, because you know there's no point in going back in history. We have our React version is updated, so I'd prefer to continue as we are. So I'm just going to have a quick look and make sure that, you know, he didn't go and update this again, because that's what happened last time, and the next video he had it updated. So we'll just continue now. It doesn't seem that he has, you know, the next video is, oh, since the update this is what you need to do. So I'll just say React. So install Tailwind CSS with React app. So yeah, it's slightly changed. So this is what we're doing here. So we have it slightly easier. We've got an easier path ahead of us, because they've upgraded, since upgraded for the newer version of Tailwind. And yes, we do have Create React App over version 5 as well. So we can go to our package.json just to confirm that there. So if we go to package.json, we can see our React there. It's version 17. Can it be that far ahead? So Tailwind anyway is version 3 over version 3.0.16, and yes, React is version 17. That's what this says here, and that's exactly what it is. That's the version. So grand. So, and Create React App is a different package again. Yes it is, than React itself. So okay, so what we will do, and we just used Create React App, which picks the most recent version. So if we go to our browser here and go to Create React App, we'll be able to see what version we did use, and it will be over version 5, or it'll be the most recent one, because we just used it from the terminal there. So npm install React scripts at latest. You can upgrade in a single task. You'll need to have node greater than version. npx comes with npm 5.2 and higher. Okay. Okay. So Create React App version. Sorry, I know I'm jumping a bit over the place. I just want to get the version for you guys. So Create React App version. Yeah, but we did it through npx, but npm, what version is it on? 5. Yeah. Okay, so it's on version 5, Create React App. So we have installed our React App using Create React App, and now since we're using Tailwind, in previous versions it was done differently. So this is what we're following. So we've installed Tailwind, we ran this command, we initialized it, perfect. We configured our template paths, we added these. I added at Tailwind to my source index.css file, perfect. And we ran the build with npm run start. And now we just need to start using Tailwind's utility classes to see it in action. So perfect, let's just keep going. We've installed it our way, he's installed it his way. And ours is just because there's been updates to the new version. So now we're also going to install Daisy. So if I come back to my browser here and go to DaisyUI, so here we go, DaisyUI Tailwind CSS components. So we just do npm I DaisyUI, and this will install the most recent version of DaisyUI. I'll open up my terminal rather than start a new one here. I'll go to my PowerShell and I'll just paste in npm I for install and DaisyUI. So perfect, that's going there. And we'll let that package install. And I'll continue to see what he's going to say. Okay, and we'll just run npm audit fix because it's telling us to here. So if we have a look down here at what our terminal says, it says run npm fix in order to fix the vulnerability. So we're just going to literally type that in and run it. And now I'm going to check back on the DaisyUI and see how to use, just to make sure this hasn't changed. So no, it doesn't seem to have changed. This is exactly what he's doing as well. So I'll copy this plugins array, and we want to go to our tailwind config.js and include this just as it says in the documentation. All I've done is gone to the DaisyUI documentation and I'm following it. So here, plugins, we want to replace this with our plugins array that includes the require statement for DaisyUI, so we can use this other npm package we've installed. So that hasn't changed. DaisyUI hasn't been updated. It's the same as what Brad is doing. So that part is the same, which is great. So perfecto. Okay, cool. So now from here what we want to do is just run npm start. So I'm going to stop this running command. We had npm run start, but I'm just going to do npm start. Fire that up. So if I just move this over, you can see that I did indeed type in npm start there. And now it's just firing up. So we'll give that a moment. And our dev server should start up. Here we go. Cool. Okay, so now what we want to do is come to our app.js. So I'll just leave that for a minute while it's firing up there. So we want to come to our app.js file and get rid of some of the code in here. So built successfully, great. Okay, so you can see there it compiled successfully. So cool. So what we want to do in here is just get rid of everything other than this div with the class name of app. So I'll add a h1. Cool. So in here I'll just add a h1 class, just a heading 1, and I'll say hello. And we want to add a class name to this, and this is going to be a Tailwind class name. So this comes with the Tailwind that we've just installed. So we'll say text XL, which is just going to give us bigger text, I presume, I know. And then here we want BG purple 500, which again is another Tailwind CSS class. So this is what Tailwind allows us to do. So let's see what that actually looks like now in our browser. So if we go back here, there we go. We can see our border and our text. Yeah, it looks fab. Okay. So yeah, let's just have a look and check our dev tools and make sure the class is being applied, which it is. So if I hover over, we can see text XL, yeah, text XL, and then down in our styles here, so we can see up in our elements when we hover over and we click on this hello that we have the class there, text XL, and the text hello. And then if we come down to our styles and the different styles that are being applied by this class text XL, we can see that we have our font size is 1.25 EM and our line height REM, sorry, and our line height is 1.75 REM. So that's applying those two classes for us. It's making the font size larger and the line height larger as well. So that's what that one word will do when you're using this Tailwind CSS. So that's actually handy, although I wonder how big the package is and what the overhead is of adding this, because it's good to just learn these CSS things yourself. You know, you're going to need to know how to do these classes. We don't use Tailwind CSS in my job. I mean, it's good to just see. I guess you'd want to inspect each element and break it down and see what it's applying. by making it text XL. What's the background purple doing 500? Is that literally just adding a background and an opacity? Okay. So, I mean, you're nearly better off just learning this command as far as I'm concerned, you know, because you're always going to have to know CSS and CSS properties. By taking the shortcut and learning these keywords, well, all you know is text XL, so how do you actually apply that with CSS yourself? But still, useful, you know, it will cut out some time, but I think you need to learn the basics before you jump into a package like this, because you're always going to need to know the basics. So yeah, that would be my opinion there. So now we're going to test a DaisyUI class as well. So I'll come under there and see what DaisyUI does. So I'll add a button and give it a class of btn. And this is just Emmet, and you tab and it creates the class name, and we'll say click. And let's save. And let's go back to our browser here and check. So there you go, we can see DaisyUI has given that button quite a nice UI there. We have the curved edges, we have the black button, you know, so this has been added from DaisyUI here. So it's added a few different things for us. We have the pointy finger, we have flex going on here, so yeah, great. So it's done a few things for us here with that button, so great. Okay. Cool, so now we're going to just clean up our project so we're ready to go. So we don't need app CSS, we don't need app test.js, we don't need our logo, we don't need our report, we don't need our setup tests. So we'll delete all of these files just because we don't need them for the moment. Move them to the recycle bin. Cool, we don't want them. So now we also need to get rid of these imports because we also don't want to be importing something that isn't there. We'll get an error. What are we giving out about? So yeah, I know that that's there, but I'm not sure why that isn't just working at the moment, so I'm going to come back to that. Field browser doesn't contain a valid configuration, so let's just see what else we need to do. So now in my index.js, we need to get rid of the import. Yeah, so that's just causing some errors there. So we'll get rid of our report web vitals and the import for that as well because it no longer exists. There we go. So we'll just go back to DaisyUI here and check out the themes that come along with it. And why not, let's test one out and use a theme. So here's our DaisyUI, how to use, and we'll come down here to themes. So how to use a theme: add data theme name to your HTML tag. I suggest using theme change so you can switch themes and save selected themes in your local storage. And here's all the different themes you can use. If you're not using Tailwind, which we are, you need to save list data theme. So let's try and apply Cupcake. So we'll just copy this data theme equals Cupcake in our HTML tag. So if we come in here to our index.html and here's our HTML tag, we can paste in that command. So we just need data theme. I don't want that. So data theme equals Cupcake. Okay, so data theme equals, and our parentheses here, and we'll say Cupcake and save. And let's go back to our browser and see what the Cupcake theme does. So yes, okay, so we have a light background and our button here. Did anything change? Let's try another theme and just make sure something actually changed there. So I'll try retro. Let's try retro. And save and come back here. Okay, yeah, so something did change. Cool. So there we go, grand. So we can see the button has changed and so has the background. So there's different inbuilt themes that you can use. How about Lofi? A pastel. I could be here all day. So let's try pastel and go back here to our browser. Okay, yeah, so we have a really rounded button here. So you have different themes, so you don't need to do styling on your H1s and all that. It seems like it just does it automatically for you there. So great. Let's try Cyberpunk. And save. So there we go, that's Cyberpunk. So now if we just come back, while we're in here, we might as well change our title to our GitHub Finder. We might as well also get rid of all these comments just because we don't need them, so we can see what's going on in this file if we so need to. Ay, 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 mamma mia, grazie. So this is what I want to delete. So cool, let's save. So now we're going to start by building our Nav Bar component. So great. And I preferred pastel, so I'm just going to go back to pastel. Cool, so what we want to do now is install React Router DOM. So I'll open up a new terminal here. We're in our GitHub Finder project. I'll just move this over, that's... Yep, so we want to do npm install React Router DOM. Cool. And we can, if we do a space and write another package, we can install multiple packages in one go. So I'll also do React icons. So this should install both of these packages first now in this one go. So I'll let that run. And now we're going to get our project set up. So in our source folder here, we want to create a new folder and call this components. And this will be where we add all our components as always. And I'm going to create subfolders in here because we're going to have a few components. So the first one will be layout. And we'll create a file in here called navbar.jsx. Cool. So in here now I can just do RFCE, enter, RFCE, tab. Just go. Why is that not working anymore? So RFCE, let me just check our extensions here. So we should have our React extension installed that does creates these first. So here we go. ES7 React Redux Native Snippets. It's installed globally. Options. Manage pull requests. Okay. Snippets. Yep. So RFCE. So let's just search for RFCE. Yep. So that should be working. Let's just try RFCE without the underscore. So RFCE. There we go. Okay, cool. So that's created our boilerplate Nav Bar JSX code for us. So perfect. And I'll also be using links in this navbar. So in order to use the links, we need to import our router. So let's do that in our app.js file here. So I will import browser router as router and route from React Router DOM. So let's just move that down. So from React Router DOM. And we'll add our semicolon, and then we will actually use this. So in order to use this, we'll wrap everything in our router. Okay, and I'll just close this down here and tab everything in, or if I save, no. So let's tab all that in so that it looks the way it should be in line. So we have one parent top level div, which is our router or tag, I should say, and then we have our different, another div, a h1 and a button within that. So I can also import our navbar component in here now, because we know we're going to need it. So I'll import navbar. There we go, from components, layouts, navbar, and then in our navbar JSX, I'm going to return, open up my parentheses here, and now add what it is we want to return. So I'll add a div, perfect, and then we'll add our link. Okay, so I'm coming around to Tailwind actually, because we're using Flex. We're getting used to Flex classes with the use of this Tailwind, so that's good. So one thing we're doing here is we want to create a div with the class of Flex. So this is just Emmet to do these shortcuts. So you just do a dot to get your class name, and then we'll also add the class of Flex call, and we also want the class of justify between. So these are Tailwind CSS classes, so which is Flexbox. This is Flexbox classes. So the fact that you're using Flexbox in Tailwind CSS, you're getting that practice, so that's good to me. I guess I maybe shouldn't have spoke before I understood it a bit better, but you need to know how to do these things in the vanilla way as well. So then H screen, we want the height of the screen to be the full amount of the screen. So if I just tab now at that, we've created our div with these different classes in it, so perfect. So in here we want to have our navbar component, and I also want my main content, which for the minute I'll just say content, and let's save. So in our navbar, do we have any text? No, so I'll just add navbar in here so we can see this on the screen. If I save, we should be able to see the word navbar now at the top of our page. So if I reload, there we go. So we have our navbar at least, that's great. And let's continue. We're going to build this out. We're going to add links. So that's a good starting place. Oh, so what Tailwind does is you don't have to write any CSS. So you just use these inbuilt classes with Tailwind and it adds the CSS for you. That is very handy, But you need to know how to write CSS if you want to be a front-end developer. So I would advise you to just go ahead and do it the old-fashioned way. But still, no harm in having a look at this and then inspecting what's going on and seeing what classes are being added. But you do need to be able to do that yourself. That's all I'm saying, you know. But this takes out having to add the CSS classes, and just by adding the class name, it adds the corresponding classes for you. So that's great. Cool, so in my nav bar here, I want to bring in the Font Awesome GitHub logo. So I'll just import that. I'll say import, and we did already install our React icons. So we can say FA GitHub. And this will be from React icons. So from React icons / FA, and also import link from React Router DOM. So in here, I'm going to pass through a title that we can use for our nav bar here. So I'll just say title. Title, cool. And I'm going to just set some default props in the case that we don't pass any through. So down here, I'll just add nav bar. So this is for our nav bar component. We want default props, which we need to install prop types for this. So default props, and this is going to be equal to an object, and here we'll say our titles default props is GitHub Finder, and we need to import that from our imports, our prop types. So import prop types from prop types. Cool. And then I'll also add the prop types. So we'll say navbar dot prop types, and this will be equal to another object, and of the title we want it to be of prop type. So now we use the capitalized version and we give it the type that we want it to be. So we want this to be a string, the title. So perfect. Now we have tightly linked types added to our props coming in. So it's going to be expecting a string, and you'll get errors if it's not a string. So you know your title is always going to be a string of some sort. In this instance, it makes perfect sense. Your title is going to be a word, or you know, my navbar 1 2 3, my finder, you know, it's going to be a string. So cool. Cool, so now what we want to do is add some classes to this div. So we can just, well, rather than using a div, actually we'll use our nav tag. So it's another tag, and we're creating a nav bar here, so we can use a nav tag. And we'll add our class name here, and we'll use our inbuilt Tailwind CSS classes. So one of these is navbar, which will add padding and stuff, and we'll also add MB12, which is margin bottom of 12, and we'll also add in shadow LG, so it'll give us some drop shadow and a background neutral. And that's a DaisyUI, and we'll also add in text neutral content, which will say how the text should look. And let's open up our nav component here, and I'll just add navbar again. And if I save and go and have a look, we should see some sort of styling on a navbar. So there we go. We have this navbar area. It has some padding, and for the moment we just have the word navbar in there. So cool. So for the moment, regardless of how much we stretch this, it's just at the very edge of the page here. So we want to add a container around this text. just so it's housed a little bit better there. So we can do that. We'll bring this down and we will add a new class called container, and we'll also add one mx auto. And if we tab there and add our nav bar inside and save that, well, yeah, nav bar, it doesn't matter, it's just a string, it's just some text. And then come back to our browser, we can see now there's some padding there, so it's just centered it slightly better for us. And as we move our page, it responds in a nice fashion there, so it's more responsive. Cool. Okay, great. So now I want to add another div in here, so I'll give this a class of flex none and add some padding and margin, so px2 and mx2 and tab. And now I'll add in our icon, so FA GitHub. Cool. And this can be self-closing, and we'll add some classes in here, so I'll say class name, and I'll say inline and padding right 2 and text 3 XL. And then I want to show my title, so I'll use my link tag here, and I want to link to, and I'll link to just the home page. Yeah. And in here I want to show my title value that's coming in from the prop, so title. And we have our link to, oh, this should be equals. And I also need class name. And we'll add the class names of text LG and font bold and align middle. So cool. Let's save. Let's go have a look at our browser. So there we go. Look, we have some large font. We've aligned it in the middle. We have our icon, which has also got, it's in line, it has padding right, and text is larger. So great, there we go. Lovely, jobly. So I'm also going to add links for the home and the about page. So after this div, we'll add some more. So I'll create another div with the class of flex1, px2, and mx2. And here I want to add another class with the class of flex, justify, end. So he's really flying through this, do you know what I mean? He's not explaining what any of this means, which, like, I get it, but would be useful, you know. But look, it's a quick course, I don't know, what can you expect? But we're really flying through all this. Like, he's just adding a load of classes with Tailwind, not to explain what any of them do. Neither am I, because I'm not getting the explanation. But basically we're adding flex classes and we're using Tailwind to add a whole bunch of CSS classes, which personally I don't really find all that useful, because, you know, tools can make the job easier when you already know what you're doing. Whereas if you're going to just use tools without the background knowledge, I don't find this useful. But I'm still going to continue, and it's great to know that this tool does exist. And for personal projects, for me, I think it would be brilliant. But like in work, we just use CSS. In any job I've ever been in, we just use CSS. We don't use packages that make writing CSS easy like this. So if you're going to learn like this, well then when you go to the workplace, in any workplace I've ever been in, you still need to know how to just write CSS. So this hasn't really helped you learning all these class names as opposed to just learning the CSS class names. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to add some links in here. So we'll add a first link. This is just a home link, so link. And I want to fill this in here. So we want to, we'll add where we want to link to. So this will be to just home. Yeah. And then we want to add some class names. And these are DaisyUI class names we're going to be adding. So button ghost, button small and rounded btn. So cool. And then this button is going to say home, or this link I should say. So now we should have that button. So here we go. Yeah, and you can see the shadow there getting added when we hover over it. So okay, cool. So I'm going to copy this link and paste it, and we're going to have another one for about. So I'll say about, and add this link to about. And if we save and go and have a look now, we should have two buttons. So home and about, cool. And what other themes do we have here? Let's try Emerald. Seeing as I am from the Emerald Isle, beautiful Ireland. And 10 points, Paul, yes, whoever you are. So if I open up my public here, back in my index HTML, and let's change this theme to Emerald and just have a look at what a different theme looks like, because we're not really getting the changes. Let's reload. Did Emerald do much? No. Let's just check another one. So fantasy, lovely. Let's try fantasy and save and come back to our browser here. Okay, so it got darker there. Okay, and we can see there our link is getting populated. We're just not telling it to route anywhere, so it is going to /about. So okay, let's just keep continuing. Cool. So we also want to create our footer component now. So great, we'll get started on that now. Okay, so we can see here our content is getting pushed right to the bottom of the screen, and rather than having our content down here, first of all we want a footer. So we will create that component in our layouts folder. So we have a layout folder and we're going to use it, let me tell you. So we'll come here to our, let's just close everything, source, components, layout. And let's create a new file, and this will be called footer.jsx, and we want to start this with rfce tab, cool. And I'll just add footer in here. So in the footer we want to add the year, so you know, created in 2022, but we want this to be dynamic, that when the year changes this just updates itself. So we'll create a constant here and say footer year and equal this to new date and dot get full year. So this is an inbuilt JavaScript, you know, getting the date. This is JavaScript, how you can get the date in JavaScript. So it's not, you know, a React thing. This is part of the JavaScript language. So here in the footer, we're going to add a class name. First of all, I'll just open up my parentheses here because we want to add a few different lines, and I'll create a footer tag. And within our footer tag now, we'll add our class name. And I'll put my class name as footer. Padding of 10, a color of BG grey 700. Text primary content. I mean, I guess it does take time to do all this in CSS, but still, you know. And then we want our div in here, so we just have a div. And then in here I want an SVG, and we're going to get our SVG from Brad's GitHub repository and just copy it. So yeah, scroll up to the top here. We are logged in. Let's go to Brad Traversy search, and we want to actually search that in all of GitHub. And people, users, there's Brad. So users, Brad Traversy, and then we want his GitHub repository. So here's repositories there, and we will search for GitHub Finder app. So cool. So GitHub Finder is the one that he used. Source, components, layout, footer. Yo, where's our footer? So let me just go to the commits because I don't see what I'm looking for here. So here, if I go to the commits, it should be one of the first commits because that's what he did in the beginning. So if we come down here, initial commit, initial and nav bar, users and user items. So he should have had it done by the third commit. So now if we look at the files, browse files, and now go to source, components, layout, nav bar. Where's your footer? And your SVG. So GitHub Finder is definitely the name of the project. Let's just go back to repositories and try GitHub Finder app. GitHub Finder application app. Source, components, layout, footer. Okay, and here's the SVG. Cool. So he just has it as GitHub Finder app in his GitHub and GitHub Finder in the video, but that's okay, that's cool. We'll just paste in this SVG. Awesome. I will tab this in to keep it all in line. Do you know what I mean? So save, cool, and let's see. And underneath this, I'll just add a paragraph. So p tag, and in here say copyright. Or IGHT, no W, and copy, which will add the actual copy symbol. And then I'll put in the footer year. Footer year. Year, because we want to actually use that year that we've calculated from up above from the new date JavaScript function that you can run, and we'll just say all rights reserved because that's what Brad said, and save. So you can write whatever you want down here. It's just your footer, and then we're going to need to import this and display it. So if we go back to our app.js here and we import our footer from components, layout, footer, and then at the bottom here we can add our footer tag. And we can self-close this and get rid of the other closing tag. Save and see how we're getting on. So now if we go back to our browser, reload, we should see the footer. And we just want to go to our home page. Okay, so console. Okay, so we're not getting any errors. This is just taking a minute. So, you know, I'm going to just move this to underneath the main. Our closing footer, our opening and closing footer tag is the self-closing tag. Come back to our browser, hit reload. Why are you acting so slow? Hit enter. Let's close off some other stuff. Check our compiler here. Scroll to the bottom. Root is defined but never used. Yeah, that's okay for the moment. I know we only did use routes. We did not use route yet. Or we used router, sorry. Why you acting so slow? I gotta know, I gotta know. So let's get rid of this unused import just to do it. There we go, compiled successfully. Let's open this up in a new window because why is it being so slow? And let's just see what's going on day 90 with Lilly code and the new GitHub Finder. Okay. So, yeah, why are you taking so slow? We ain't got all day, guys. We have 3 problems. This has just got to do with Tailwind. Yeah, we've had them since the beginning and they've only just, they're not causing this problem. If I open up my terminal. Okay guys, so I don't know what's going on with my internet or why this isn't loading. This is taking a very long time. But we've hit the hour, we've made, are you seeing sort of what was going on? All that we should have added is a footer with some text in it. And so now we have a nav bar, a footer and a main piece of content. And now we're going to start pulling in information from the GitHub API to actually get all the users in GitHub and to be able to search them in our application and go and have a look at their profile. So that's what's going to be coming up next. Stay tuned. And thank you so much for joining me, Lily Code, for another episode of 100 Days of Code. Appreciate it so much. Love you all. Have a great day. Thank you so much for spending an hour here with me. I'm very, very grateful. Thanks guys. Have a lovely day. Adios.